If you watch my channel, you already know what my pick for the absolute best washing machines to buy is. And I tell you right now, neither of these two is going to be it. But that's not what today's video is about. Today I want to talk to the folks that are shopping on a tight budget. This is going to be the young couple that's setting up their first place, the small family that just needs a washer that works and doesn't cost a fortune. Now these are the two cheapest top loaders that you can buy brand new from two different brands. And they're the machines that I see coming to my shop more than just about anything else. Now here's the good news. When they do break, they're usually a reasonable repair, not a throwaway situation. And if you take care of them, they'll give you a good run. Now we're talking 8 to 10 years out of the Amana and maybe 10 to 14 out of the GE with proper care. So before we get into what breaks and what it'll cost you in time and parts, let me show you how to make one of these machines last. Most of the early death I see on these budget machines isn't a defect. It's how they get used. So here's how you get your money's worth, and most of this comes right out of the owner's manual that the manufacturer ships in the box. Don't overload it. Both manuals say the same thing. Load your clothes evenly around the agitator and load it loosely. The GE manual actually tells you to load loosely around the outside of the basket and fill toward the center on the bigger loads. Overloading hurts the wash, and it's hard on the moving parts. If you're packing it down to get in more into the machine, it's too much. So keep the heavy stuff out of it. Now these are 3.8 cubic foot tubs. They're not made for a king size comforter or a sleeping bag. A soaked up comforter throws the whole machine off balance, and I'll show you in a minute why that's the thing that kills these washers. Run that bedding down to the laundromat and use one of their big high capacity machines. It cleans better and it saves your washer. Use the right soap and don't overdo it. Both of these specifically call for HE, that's high efficiency detergent, because they wash on lower water, and too much soap doesn't rinse it out. It just leaves residue and odor behind. More soap is not more clean. Keep it level, keep it clean. Make sure it sits solid and level on the floor. A machine that rocks is a machine that beats itself apart in the spin cycle. Run a clean cycle about once a month to keep the residue and the odor out. The Amana has a clean washer cycle that is made for a fresh tablet. The GE just tells you to run a cleaning cycle with a washing machine cleaner. A fresh, Tide, or even a mix of white vinegar and hot water will do the job. And leave the lid up between washes so the inside can dry out. And read your manual. Every one of these ships with a use and care guide that lays out exactly how the maker wants you to run it. And follow that, and that's the difference between a machine that's going to quit in 5 years and one that gives you the full 8, 10, maybe even 14 years. Before we get into it, one important note. I'm recording this on June the 28th, 2026, and everything I'm telling you is true for these two exact models as they sit on the showroom floor today. The Amana NTW4519JW and the GE GTW330ASKWW. Now, here's something that the manufacturers won't tell you. These model numbers change just about every year. They'll swap a letter or a number on the tag, slap a new sticker on it, and call it a new model. But year to year, there's usually little or no real change to the machine underneath. It's got the same guts, the same parts, the same repairs. So if you're watching this down the road and the number on the tag is a little different, don't sweat it. The machine I'm showing you is almost certainly the same washer wearing a new name. Now let's talk about what you're actually buying, because on paper these two are closer than you'd think. Both are 3.8 cubic foot top loaders. Both use a real agitator, that post in the middle that a lot of folks still want and trust. Both have a stainless wash basket. Both have a deep water or deep fill option, so you're not stuck with that little dribble of water the high efficiency machines are known for. And both run you about the same money. The bottom of they are both on the bottom price ladder for a brand new machine. The Amana model NTW4519JW is built by Whirlpool. You get a high efficiency agitator, a handful of wash cycles, the deep water wash option, an automatic fabric softener dispenser, and a lid that locks. Simple dial, easy to run, nothing fancy, and that's the point. The GE model GTW330ASKWW is 3.8 cubic feet as well, with a heavy duty agitator, 11 wash cycles, a spin speed that runs around 670 to 700 RPM. GE's precise fill with 4 water levels, a deep rinse option, and both bleach and fabric softener dispensers. And here's one that I like to point out. It's even made right here in the USA. So if they're this close on the spec sheet, how do you choose? You don't choose on the brochure, you choose on what happens 2, 5, 8 years down the road when something quits. And that's where I can actually help you, because I've had both these apart in my shop more times than I can count. So let's open them up. So first up, let's take the Amana. I'll give you the common failures and what you'll see when it happens and how bad a fix it really is. And remember, I've got repair videos for most of these, and I'll point you to them with a card on the screen up here and a link in the description. So let's start with the lid lock, because it's one of the most common calls I get on these machines. What the customer sees is the lid lock just clicking over and over and over, click, 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 and the machine won't start a cycle. And sometimes it won't click at all. It just won't lock, so it won't start. And if the switching side of it has failed, it's the same thing. It's not going to start. Now, here's something to know before you buy the part. On the Amana, the lock and the switch are one assembly. They're a 2-component part, so if either half fails, you have to replace the whole thing. You can't just buy the switch. And to get at it, you have to take the top off. And there's a plate, and there's 2 screws on the back. And then you can slide the top forward and lift it up, pull the rear console plate off, and disconnect the lid switch lead from the control board. I've got a video that walks you through the whole thing, and the card's up on the screen, and the link's going to be in the description. So next is the water valve on these things, and this one fools people. The customer says that the washer stopped in the rinse in there. Wet clothes are just sitting there in the bottom of the tub. Now what's happening is the cold water valve has gone slow. Mineral deposits, wear, whatever. And here's the key. These machines rinse only in cold water. Only cold. So when that cold valve can't fill the tub in a reasonable time, the machine times out and pumps itself out to keep from flooding your laundry room. And that's a safety feature doing its job. It's not the machine being dumb. The fix is a new water valve. And I've got a video for that one too. So now the opposite problem, a pump that just runs and runs and runs and won't quit, and that's going to be your pressure transducer. So the machine thinks that the tub is full when it's actually empty, so it keeps trying to pump out the water that isn't there. You have to swap the transducer, and that usually clears it. If it doesn't, then you're looking at a new control board. And the card on the screen is for the transducer change. Now, out of balance problems. The machine starts walking, banging, making a racket on the spin. On the Amana, that's almost always worn out suspension rods. And this is the one I want you to fix right away. Don't keep running it. Every spin cycle that's out of balance is hammering the rest of that machine. Now, when you fix it, you want to use only OEM rods. Now, I know there's 100 gimmick fixes on the internet. They have zip ties and springs and paper clips and all kinds of things. None of them work as well as just replacing the rods with the real thing. Do it once, do it right, and it's fixed. And while you're in there, check for the bent basket too, because that'll throw it off the same way. And I've got cards for replacing both the rods and dealing with the bent basket right up here. So the shift actuator. A couple of different complaints point here. One, the machine goes from wash to done, but nothing really happens. It never moves through the cycle correctly. Two, it may stop dead in the middle of a cycle because the cycle timed out when the clutch wouldn't shift. And here's a handy one to know. If it won't spin during a normal cycle, but it spins just fine when you put it in diagnostic mode, that's kind of pointing at the tachometer. Now on these, the tachometer lives inside the shift actuator. It does a double duty. It's a two-component part, the shifting and the speed reading. So the actuator is the part that you're going to need to change. And now the bad one, if you hear a roar on the spin cycle, a deep growling sound, that's the bearings going out the gear case. And I'm going to be straight with you. Economically, that's usually a terminal diagnosis. If you're paying somebody to do it, it's not worth it on a machine that's cheap. But if you're willing to do the work yourself, a gear case swap brings it back to life, and the part's pretty reasonable. So this one comes down to whether you turn your own wrenches or not. Now the motor and its capacitor. The symptom here is your clothes get balled up on one side or wrapped up around the agitator, or the machine is only turning in one direction. These run a reversing motor. It changes direction to do its job, and that reversing depends on the windings and the capacitor working together. So that one direction symptom can be a bad capacitor, or could be bad motor windings, or the direction side on the control board. The capacitor is going to be the cheap fix, so try that first. And it's an easy thing to rule out first too. And next, it would be if the machine doesn't drain, it could be a jammed water pump. Could be something stuck in the intake of the water pump by jamming the impeller. It could be a broken impeller. But here's the lesson that I want you to take from this one. A humming pump is not a working pump. Now folks can hear it hum and figure it's fine. These pumps will spin up perfectly on the bench with no water, but you put them under a load and a bad one will just buzz back and forth, and it never makes a full rotation like it needs to. So don't let the hum fool you. And last, for the Amana, the control board itself. You can get swollen capacitors or on the board or blown components, and a lot of the time it's caused by bugs getting in there or moisture. And these are hard to spot, and they make the machine do strange things or just sit there dead with no response to any button you push. When you've ruled out everything else and it's still acting possessed, the board's where you're probably going to land. Now the GE, a lot of the same parts, a few important differences, and one or two tricks that'll save you a real headache. The lid lock change is basically the same as the Amana. It's got the same idea, same access. Things come off a little differently. Here's the GE trick that nobody tells you. Sometimes the pins on the control board don't make good contact with a new switch plug. Now you may put in a brand new part, it still won't work right, and you'll swear you got a bad switch. But before you do anything else, take a pick, a toothpick or a regular mechanic's pick, and gently bend those pins over just a hair toward the metal contacts inside the plug part of the connector. That little bend makes the connection. A new switch will give you fits if you don't know that one little trick. And if it's the control board, you can swap in another GE board, but here's the trick. Everything below that console on a GE machine is basically the same machine. What makes it a GTW330 is the console on the front. The cycles, the knob, the spin speed, that's what the board's personality sets. So the board has to match the console, not the guts. Set it wrong and the dial's going to lie to you. And the code itself depends on which board you bought. The same GTW330 might be 8 on one board, 11 on another. So don't trust a number off the internet. Use the chart that comes in the box with the new board. Now the GE water valve can give you that same slow cold water trouble. Mineral buildup, wear over time. One extra thing on the GE, these valves are really susceptible to freeze damage. If that machine sits in an unheated garage or a cold utility room, the valve body cracks easy. So if you're in a cold climate, keep that in mind. Now, GE specific weak spot, the agitator. These are prone to stripping their splines, that gear tooth connection where the agitator grips the shaft. And the bolt that holds the agitator down to the shaft is thin. It's too thin if you ask me, and it'll twist right off if you put an impact wrench on it. Once that bolt snaps off in the shaft, you've gone from a simple job to a real problem. And now you're trying to get a broken bolt out without wrecking the shaft. So hand tools only on that bolt. Don't touch it with an impact wrench. No spin symptoms on a GE is usually the belt. You replace the belt, clean the excess grease off the pulleys while you're in there. And that grease is a GE issue. It might be too much from the factory, might be a seal weeping a little. But the good news is it's normally a one-time deal. You clean it up, new belt, you're back in business. If you hear a grinding noise while it's running, not the deep roar of bearings, but a grinding, that's usually going to be a worn clutch. Just replacing that clutch. And the clutch is the part that's under the big black wheel on underneath the machine. You have the same motor and capacitor story as the Amana. Balled up clothes in one direction turning, that's going to be your capacitor or a winding or the board's direction circuit. Now here's GE difference though. Instead of a tachometer like the Amana's got, the GE uses a motor speed sensor. The tell on this one is you run a diagnostic test, the machine starts its spin test, and then it just suddenly quits right in the middle of the test. And when you see that, it starts to spin, then it suddenly stops. That's usually going to be your speed sensor. Now, suspension rods on the GE rarely fail. It happens, but it's not common. And honestly, that's a big reason that I'd point you toward the GE over the Amana if you're choosing between the two. The Amana eats suspension rods. The GE just doesn't most of the time. Where the GE does give me steady work is the drain pump. I see a lot of these. If it won't drain and there's no obstruction in there, no sock, no coin, nothing in the hose, it's usually just the pump itself has failed. The shifter on these GEs, on the other hand, is robust. Rarely fails. It's not something that I worry about on this machine. And same as the Amana, if you get that roaring sound, the bearings are gone, and that's a terminal illness for the machine, unless you're going to do the labor yourself. In that case, a gear case swap is going to bring it back. So there you have it, the two cheapest washers you can buy. Going through top to bottom, the honest version. Both are simple machines, both are reasonable to fix when you catch the problem early. And I can't say that enough, catch it early. The single biggest thing that turns a cheap part into a dead washer is running it broken, especially out of balance. A machine that's banging itself around on every spin is tearing up the parts that really cost money. Fix the little stuff fast and these will go the distance. If you're making me pick between these two, I lean toward the GE, and you know why. It doesn't need suspension rods, the shifter's solid, and it'll usually give you a few more years. But like I said at the top, neither one of these is my pick for the best washer you can buy. If you want to know what it is and why, I've got a video on exactly that, and I'll put it right up here at the end. Either way, don't throw a good machine away over a cheap part. Most of what I showed you today, you can fix yourself, and I've got the videos to walk you through every one of them. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the shop. Chip is out.